Jeremiah Blackwood hadn't touched another human being in 8 years. Not until the Comanche woman asked to stay the night, and everything inside him cracked open like drought-hardened earth meeting rain. His hands trembled as he reached toward her. She sat on the edge of his bed, blood seeping through the torn fabric of her buckskin shirt. The bullet had carved a furrow across her shoulder. Nothing fatal. Everything changed. Thunder shook the cabin walls. Lightning carved shadows across her face. She didn't flinch when his fingers found the wound. "I only asked to stay one night," she whispered. Her dark eyes held his. "But I think we both need more than that." The words hung in the air between them, heavy as storm clouds, dangerous as touching flame. Jed pulled his hands back. The warmth of her skin burned on his fingertips. 8 years of careful numbness shattered in that moment. 8 years of building walls around his heart. He turned away, walked to the window. Rain lashed against the glass. "How did this happen?" His voice came out rough, unused to questions that mattered. "Men with guns don't always need reasons." She shifted on the bed. Fabric rustled. He kept his back to her, safer that way. "They're gone now, for tonight." The fire crackled in the hearth. Wind howled through the eaves. His cabin had been silent for so long. Her presence filled every corner with something he'd forgotten existed. Life. 3 days earlier, Jed had been a different man, still broken, still alone, still convinced that was how it should be. The morning had started like every other, coffee black as his mood, bread hard enough to break teeth. He ate standing at the kitchen window, watching his cattle dot the brown grassland, counting losses. 50 head missing this month. The rustlers grew bolder with each raid. His ranch hands whispered about quitting. Only Miguel Santos remained loyal. Miguel and his weathered face and worried eyes. Jed pulled on his coat, stepped onto the porch. The November air cut through wool and flesh straight to bone. Winter coming early this year. Hard winter by the feel of it. Miguel appeared from the barn. His boots crunched on frost-brittle grass. "Lost 6 more last night," Miguel said. No greeting. Bad news didn't wait for pleasantries. Jed's jaw tightened. The numbers added up to ruin. Clara's ranch, Clara's dream, everything she'd loved turning to dust in his hands. Tracks, washed out by the rain. Professional job. They walked toward the pasture where the cattle should have been grazing, empty now except for wind and dying grass. "They know our patterns," Miguel continued. "Someone's feeding them information." The words hit like a physical blow. Betrayal, in his own house. Jed studied the trampled ground, boot prints mixed with hoof prints. His cattle driven off into the darkness by men who knew exactly where to find them. "Who?" Miguel shrugged. His silence spoke volumes. Trust had become a luxury Jed couldn't afford, not since Clara died, not since the world proved it would take everything he cared about and grind it into nothing. The storm hit that afternoon. Sky turned black as charcoal. Wind came howling down from the mountains carrying ice and fury. Jed battened down the barn doors, checked the remaining cattle huddled in the north pasture, counted his losses again. Numbers that spelled the end of everything. He was crossing the yard when he saw her, a figure on horseback cresting the hill, moving slow against the wind, horse favoring its left front leg. Trouble had to be. Nobody rode through weather like this without running from something worse. Jed went inside, checked his rifle. Loaded, always loaded these days. He watched through the window as horse and rider approached. The rider was small, wrapped in a dark coat that flapped like broken wings. When they reached the porch, the figure slid down from the saddle. A woman. She knocked, 3 sharp raps. Jed opened the door with the rifle in his hands. She stood in the driving rain. Water streamed from black hair. Her clothes were travel-worn leather and wool. Her skin marked her as Comanche. His finger found the trigger. "My horse pulled up lame," she said. Her English carried no accent. "I need shelter for the night." Lightning split the sky behind her. Thunder followed close. "Plenty of caves in the hills," Jed said. "Not in this storm." She was right. The rain fell in sheets now, deadly cold. No horse would survive the night in open ground. "Barn's dry," he said finally. She nodded. led her limping horse toward the shelter. Jed watched her go, something about the way she moved, careful, alert, like a person who'd learned not to trust the ground beneath her feet. He closed the door, tried to push away the image of dark eyes in a rain-soaked face. An hour later she collapsed. Jed found her crumpled in the barn doorway. Fever burned through her clothes. Her breathing came shallow and quick. He stood over her, rifle still in his hands. 8 years of isolation screaming at him to walk away. Let the storm take her. Keep his world small and safe and empty. But Clara's voice whispered in his memory. The woman who'd never turned away from anyone who needed help. Jed slung the rifle over his shoulder, lifted the stranger in his arms. Her body felt light as bird bones, hot as forge-heated metal. He carried her into his house, into the room where no one had slept since Clara died, laid her on the bed where his wife had drawn her last breath. The fever broke near dawn. She opened her eyes as gray light filtered through the curtains. "Where am I?" "My house, you were burning up." She tried to sit, winced and fell back against the pillow. "Easy," Jed said. "You're safe." The word surprised him, safe. He hadn't used it in years. She studied his face, looking for lies, looking for danger. "I'm Ayanna," she said finally. "Jed." "Thank you, Jed." Something in the way she said his name, like she was tasting it, testing its weight. Outside, the storm still raged. Ayanna stayed 3 days. On the fourth morning, she offered to track his stolen cattle. "You know cattle?" Jed asked. She crouched beside the water trough, studied the muddy ground where boot prints crossed hoof prints. Her fingers traced patterns in the dirt. "I know men who steal them." The words carried weight, history, pain buried deep. Jed watched her read the earth like scripture. Every scuff mark told a story. Every broken blade of grass pointed toward truth. "They took 50 head this month," he said. 50 head needs organization, leadership." She stood. Dust clung to her fingers. "Someone who knows your ranch." The betrayal cut deeper hearing it from her lips. "Someone close, someone trusted." "What do you want in return?" "Supplies, safe passage when I leave." "When, not if." Jed nodded. "Business transaction, nothing more." They rode out before dawn. The morning air bit through wool and leather. Frost painted the grass silver. Their horses' breath steamed in the cold. Ayanna moved across the landscape like water finding its course. She read signs invisible to his eyes: a broken branch, disturbed stones, the way grass bent against the wind. "Here," she said. They dismounted beside a dry creek bed. The ground told its story in churned mud and scattered droppings. 50 head driven hard toward the hills. 6 riders, Ayanna said. "Maybe 7, they know these trails." Jed's chest tightened. Local men, neighbors perhaps, people who'd shared his table in better times. They followed the trail into broken country, rocks and scrub brush, canyons that swallowed sound. Perfect place to hide stolen cattle, perfect place to hide anything. The trail split at a granite outcrop. One path led deeper into the hills, the other circled back toward town. "They're not keeping them," Ayanna said, "moving them quick." "To where?" She knelt beside the rocks. Her fingers found scratches in the stone, metal on granite, horseshoes and wheel rims. "Wagons came through here, recently." A railroad spur ran 20 miles east, cattle cars waiting to carry stolen beef to distant markets. Clean money for dirty work. They made camp as shadows stretched across the canyon floor. No fire, cold beans from a can, water that tasted of stone and sky. Yana sat apart from him, always a careful distance, never close enough to touch by accident. "You lost someone," she said. The words cut through the stillness. Jed's hands stilled on his coffee cup. "My wife, 8 years ago." "Children?" Pain twisted in his chest, sharp as broken glass. "No," Yana nodded. Understanding passed between them without explanation. Loss recognized loss. "The ranch was hers," Jed continued. "Her dream, her family's land. And now it's dying in my hands." The wind carried scents of sage and coming winter. Stars appeared overhead, cold and distant and clean. "I lost someone too," Yana said. Her voice barely carried across the space between them, quiet as prayer, heavy as stone. "Who?" She was silent so long he thought she wouldn't answer. "A child taken from me 3 years ago," the words hung in the air, "fragile as spider silk, dangerous as gunpowder. Taken how? Soldiers came, said she belonged with her own people." Jana's laugh held no humor. "White people." Understanding dawned cold and bitter. An adopted child, white skin in a Comanche world, bureaucrats and politicians deciding what constituted family. "Where is she now?" "That's what I'm trying to find out." The fire crackled between them. Sparks rose toward the star-scattered sky, two broken people sharing the darkness. "What was her name?" "Luna. She was 7 when they took her." Jed closed his eyes. Imagine the terror. Child torn from the only mother she remembered. Strangers carrying her toward an unknown fate. "You're looking for her. Every day for 3 years." The weight of it settled on his shoulders. Her careful questions in town, her knowledge of roads and settlements, a mother's desperate search disguised as wandering. "The family she's with now. Do you know them?" Yana stared into the fire, flames reflected in her dark eyes. "They call her Mary now. She lives with Pastor Whitmore and his wife in Clearwater, 20 miles south, close enough to touch. Too far to reach. Have you seen her?" "Once, from a distance." Yana's voice cracked slightly. She was playing with other children, laughing. The pain in those words. A mother watching her stolen child find happiness elsewhere. She looked healthy, well cared for. Tears tracked down Iyana's cheeks. "She didn't recognize me." Jed wanted to reach across the fire, take her hand, offer comfort he didn't know how to give. Instead he sat still, held his silence. They found the stolen cattle the next morning, hidden in a box canyon 5 miles north. Makeshift corrals built from deadfall and rope. His brand burned over with running irons. 50 head milling in the narrow space. Thin from hard driving. Nervous from rough handling. "No guards," Jed whispered. "They'll be back tonight. Load them into wagons." A sound carried on the wind. Hoof beats approaching fast. They pressed against the canyon wall, hidden in shadow and stone. 3 riders appeared at the canyon mouth. Jed recognized them all. Tom Bradley owned the spread north of town. Drank with him every Saturday until Clara died. Pete Morrison sold feed and grain, honest reputation, family man. And bringing up the rear, checking a pocket watch against the morning sun. Miguel Santos. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. His most trusted friend. The man who'd stood beside Clara's grave. Who'd kept the ranch running when grief made Jed useless. Miguel dismounted, walked among the cattle, counting heads with practiced eyes. 52, he called. 2 more than we expected. "Boss won't complain about extra beef," Bradley said. "When do the wagons come?" Morrison asked. "Tonight. We load them after dark. They'll be in Kansas City by week's end." Miguel's voice carried across the canyon. Matter of fact, business as usual. Jed's hand found his rifle. Finger on the trigger. One shot would end it all. Yana's fingers closed over his wrist. She shook her head slightly. 3 against 2. Poor odds in open ground. They waited until the riders left, then slipped away through the rocks and shadows. The ride back to the ranch passed in silence. Jed's mind churned with images of betrayal. Miguel at his kitchen table. Miguel consoling him after Clara's funeral. Miguel stealing his livelihood piece by piece. "You're going to confront him," Iana said. "Tonight. Alone. This is personal." She reined up her horse, faced him directly. "Personal gets you killed." Her dark eyes held his. Steady as bedrock, sure as sunrise. "Then what do you suggest?" "We wait, watch, find out who's giving the orders." The wisdom in her words cut through his anger. Vengeance felt good. Justice required patience. "How long?" "However long it takes." They made it back to the ranch as evening shadows stretched across the yard. Miguel waited on the porch, his weathered face creased with worry. "Where have you been, Jed?" "I was getting concerned." The lie came so easily, smooth as worn leather. How many others had there been? "Checking fence lines," Jed said. "Find anything interesting?" The question held weight. Miguel's eyes moved between Jed and Ayana, calculating, measuring threat. "Nothing worth mentioning." Miguel nodded, smiled. the same smile he'd worn for 15 years. Dinner's waiting. Alina made extra for your guest. Miguel's wife, had she known. Was the whole family complicit in his ruin? We ate on the trail, Jed said. Suit yourself. Miguel headed toward his own small house behind the barn. His boots crunched on gravel. Normal sounds. Everyday betrayal disguised as routine. He suspects, Yana said quietly. Let him. Inside the house, Jed poured whiskey. His hands shook slightly. 8 years of trust shattered in a single morning. You can't drink this away, Yana said. I can try. She took the bottle from his hands, set it aside. Your wife. Would she want you to destroy yourself over stolen cattle? Clara's memory rose unbidden. Her voice in his ear. Her hand on his shoulder during dark moments. She'd want justice. Then let's find it. Yana moved closer, close enough that he could smell sage in her hair, see gold flecks in her dark eyes. Together, if you'll have me. The words carried double meaning, partnership and something deeper, something that scared him more than rustlers or betrayal. I'll have you, he whispered. Outside, night settled over the broken land. Stars appeared one by one, cold and distant and beautiful. Tomorrow would bring answers. Tonight brought only questions and the dangerous warmth of another person's presence. For the first time in 8 years, Jed Blackwood wasn't alone. They rode to Clearwater at dawn. The town squatted beside a muddy creek, wooden buildings weathered gray by wind and disappointment. Church bells called the faithful to Sunday worship. Gianna pulled her hat low, kept her face in shadow. There, she whispered, a small girl walked between a man and woman. Brown hair in careful braids, white dress pressed clean. She clutched a rag doll against her chest. The child had Gianna's eyes. They watched from across the street as the family entered the white-steepled church. Pastor Whitmore's hand rested gently on the girl's shoulder. His wife smoothed the child's hair with maternal affection. Love lived in those gestures. Real love, even if built on stolen ground. She looks happy, Jed said quietly. Gianna's hands tightened on the reins. Her horse shifted beneath her. She is happy. That's what makes this harder. The church doors closed. Hymns drifted through the morning air, sacred songs about redemption and grace. What will you do? I don't know. Truth raw as an open wound. A mother torn between love and justice, between what she needed and what the child deserved. They returned to the ranch carrying silence heavier than stone. Miguel waited in the yard, his face creased with forced concern. How was your ride? Peaceful, Jed said. Miguel's eyes lingered on Iana, calculating distances, measuring threats. Tobias Grantham stopped by, left this for you. He handed Jed an official envelope, government seal pressed into red wax. Bad news announced itself in fine paper and careful penmanship. Jed read the contents twice, each word a nail in his coffin. What does it say? Iana asked. Tax assessment. Claims I owe 3 years back taxes on improved land value. Jed crumpled the paper. Money I don't have. How much time do they give you? 10 days, pay in full or face seizure. Miguel made sympathetic sounds. His performance deserved applause. That's a hard blow, Jed, especially with the rustling problems. The words tasted of poison honey, sweet concern masking deadly intent. I'll manage, Jed said. Course you will, you always do. Miguel walked toward the barn. His whistling carried on the wind. Cheerful tune at odds with the devastation he'd helped engineer. He's reporting to someone, Iana said. Grantham, the land commissioner who wants your ranch. The pieces fit together with clockwork precision. Steal the cattle to weaken his finances. Inflate the tax burden to force a sale. Legal theft dressed up in official paperwork. They want me desperate. Are you? Jed looked across the land Clara had loved. Rolling hills dotted with mesquite and stone. Sky so big it swallowed the horizon. Worth dying for, worth killing for, getting there. That night they kept watch from the canyon rim. Cold stars wheeled overhead. Wind carried the scent of coming snow. Wagons arrived at midnight. 4 men with rifles and hard faces. They worked by lamplight, loading stolen cattle into wooden pens on wheels. Miguel supervised the operation. His familiar voice directed the theft of Jed's future. "Easy with that bull, he's worth good money." Tom Bradley spat tobacco juice into the dirt. "When's the next shipment?" "Week from Tuesday. Grantham wants it clean and quiet." "What about the Indian woman?" Miguel's head turned toward the canyon rim, as if he could feel their eyes watching. "She's a problem. Jed's getting attached." "Kill her." The words drifted up through cold air. Casual as discussing whether killing brings attention, federal marshals asking questions. "Then run her off." "I'm working on it." They finished loading as dawn approached. Cattle bellowed in their wooden prisons. Wagons creaked toward the railroad spur and distant markets. $50,000 in stolen beef disappearing into the gray morning. Jed and Ayanna rode home in silence. The weight of what they'd witnessed pressed down between them. Miguel's betrayal complete, his willingness to see her dead. At the ranch, Miguel was making coffee, acting the part of loyal foreman. His smile never wavered. "You're up early," he said. "Couldn't sleep." "Worries will do that." "The tax situation got you troubled." Jed poured himself coffee. His hand stayed steady through force of will. "I'll find the money somewhere." "Sure you will. Always land on your feet." Miguel's performance deserved admiration. 15 years of friendship convincingly counterfeited. "Miguel," Jed said carefully, "if something happened to me, what would you do?" "Nothing's going to happen to you. But if it did." Miguel's face went still. Behind his eyes, calculations ran cold and quick. "Find other work, I suppose. Man's got to eat." "You'd stay in the area. This is home. Alina's got family here." The lie tasted bitter in the morning air. Miguel had already made his peace with betrayal, already planned his next move in Grantham's game. That afternoon, strangers appeared on the horizon. 3 riders moving fast across open ground. They reined up at the ranch house. Dust swirled around their horses' hooves. The lead rider wore a federal marshal's badge. His companions carried the hard look of professional guns. "You Blackwood?" "I am." "Marshal Davis. We're looking for a Comanche woman. Goes by Yana." "You seen her?" Jed's pulse quickened. His face stayed neutral. "Can't say I have. What's she done?" "Murder. Killed a federal agent up north, armed and dangerous." The words hit him in the chest. Yana stood behind him in the doorway, close enough to hear every accusation. "What's she look like?" Davis pulled out a wanted poster. Hand-drawn portrait that could have been any Indian woman. Generic features designed to justify any arrest. Rewards substantial. $500. Miguel appeared from the barn, his timing perfect as stage direction. "That's a lot of money," Miguel said. "Blood money usually is." Davis studied Jed's face, looking for tells, signs of deception. "Mind if we search your property?" "You got a warrant." "Don't need one for fugitive harboring." The threat hung in the air between them. Cooperation or legal harassment. Submit or suffer. Search away. They spent an hour going through every building. Barn, bunkhouse, tool shed. Iana had vanished during the conversation, gone to ground somewhere in the hills. Davis mounted his horse with obvious frustration. "She comes by, you send word. Harboring fugitives is a federal crime." "I'll keep that in mind." The marshals rode away trailing dust and menace, their message delivered with government authority. Jed found Ayanna in the root cellar behind the house, hidden among sacks of potatoes and preserved goods. Her eyes reflected lamplight. "Murder?" he asked. "Self-defense. They were taking children from the reservation. Selling them." Truth rang in her voice, clean as bell metal. "The agent tried to stop me from documenting his crimes. We fought. He pulled a gun first." Jed believed her without question. Federal agents capable of child trafficking were capable of anything. $500 is serious money. Someone will talk. Someone already has. They climbed out of the cellar into fading daylight. Miguel stood by the barn watching them emerge. His face wore satisfaction poorly disguised as concern. "Trouble finding something?" he called. "Just checking supplies," Jed answered. Miguel nodded. His smile never reached his eyes. That night Miguel came to the house, his weathered face heavy with manufactured sorrow. "Jed, we need to talk." "About what?" "The woman, Yana." Miguel's voice dropped to confidential whispers. She's dangerous. Wanted for murder. I heard. You can't keep harboring her. Think about Clara's memory. What would she say, using Clara's name like a weapon, twisting love into leverage? Clara would want me to do what's right. Right is turning her in, collecting the reward. Use the money to save your ranch. $500. Enough to buy time if not salvation. That what you do? Miguel leaned forward, his eyes intense with false friendship. I do whatever it took to survive. This land means everything to you. Don't throw it away for a woman you barely know. The advice came wrapped in reason, practical wisdom from a trusted friend. Except the friend was a thief. The wisdom was poison. I'll think about it, Jed said. Don't think too long, word spreading. Someone else will claim that reward if you don't act. Miguel left with his mission accomplished. Seeds of doubt planted in fertile ground. Jed sat alone in his kitchen. Clara's chair empty across the table. Iyana's future balanced against his past. Outside, winter wind rattled the windows. Cold settled into the bones of the old house. In 3 days, the next cattle shipment would roll toward market. Miguel's betrayal would be complete, unless Jed found the courage to stop it. They set the trap on Tuesday night. Miguel had told them about the next shipment. 40 head waiting in the canyon, wagons coming at midnight. What Miguel didn't know was that Jed and Ayana would be waiting too. They positioned themselves in the rocks above the canyon mouth. Rifles loaded, hearts hammering against ribs. 8 years of grief and 3 years of searching had led to this moment. The wagons arrived on schedule, 4 men with guns and lanterns. Miguel supervised the loading with practiced efficiency. Jed took aim at the nearest rustler. His finger found the trigger. Then hoofbeats thundered from the canyon rim. Marshal Davis appeared with 6 men, federal badges gleaming in the lamplight, rifles trained on everyone below. Nobody move. You're all under arrest. Chaos erupted in the narrow space. Rustlers scattered toward the rocks. Miguel dove behind a wagon. Gunshots echoed off canyon walls. A small figure broke from the darkness behind the marshals. A child in a white nightgown, brown hair streaming in the wind. Luna. She ran down the slope toward the sound of gunfire, toward danger she didn't understand. Xiana burst from cover, sprinted across open ground. A rustler's rifle swung toward the running child. The bullet caught Xiana in the shoulder, spun her around. She fell hard against the rocky ground, but her momentum carried her to Luna. Her arms wrapped around the child as blood soaked through torn fabric. "Mama," Luna whispered. The word came out broken. Full of forgotten memories suddenly returned. Jed reached them as the shooting stopped. Miguel stood with his hands raised. Davis's men had the surviving rustlers in custody. "She needs a doctor," Jed said. Blood seeped between his fingers as he pressed against the wound. Yana's eyes fluttered. Her breathing came shallow and quick. "The child," she whispered. "She's safe." Luna clung to Ayana's uninjured arm. Tears streaked her small face. "I remember now. I remember everything." More riders appeared at the canyon mouth. Pastor Whitmore and his wife. Their faces tight with fear and confusion. "Mary," Mrs. Whitmore called, "come away from there." Luna looked up, her young face set with newfound certainty. "My name is Luna. This is my mama." The words carried across the canyon. Simple truth spoken by a child's voice. Pastor Whitmore dismounted, walked slowly toward the wounded woman and frightened child. "Luna ran away tonight," he said quietly. "She's been having dreams, nightmares about soldiers and fire." He knelt beside Ayana, his weathered hands gentle as he examined her wound. "Not nightmares," he continued. "Memories." Jed pressed harder against the bleeding. Yana's skin felt cold beneath his palms. "She needs medical attention." "My wife was a nurse. We can help." Whitmore looked into Ayana's pain-filled eyes. "I've been investigating the federal adoption program. Children taken from reservations, placed with white families." His voice carried shame. "Some of those placements weren't legal." Luna's small hand touched Ayana's cheek. "Why did you leave me, Mama?" "I didn't leave you, little star. They took you from me." Understanding passed between them. Years of separation explained in simple words. Marshal Davis approached with his prisoner in tow, Miguel's hands bound behind his back, his face hollow with defeat. "This your foreman Blackwood?" "Was." Miguel's eyes met Jed's. All pretense finally stripped away. "I'm sorry," Miguel whispered. "They threatened my boy, said they'd put him in prison." The words came out broken, a desperate father's justification for betrayal. "They made me choose between your ranch and my son." Jed looked at the man who'd been his friend for 15 years, saw the tears tracking through dust and stubble. "You could have told me. Would you have believed me? Would you have helped?" The question hung in the air between them, truth sharp as broken glass. Jed would have helped, would have fought beside Miguel against any threat, but Miguel had been too afraid to ask, too proud to admit weakness. "Take him away," Jed said quietly. They carried Ayanna to the pastor's house. Mrs. Whitmore cleaned the wound with practiced hands. The bullet had passed through cleanly, muscle torn but no bones broken. "She'll heal," the older woman said, "with proper rest." Luna refused to leave her mother's bedside. She sat in a wooden chair holding Ayanna's hand, whispering stories about her dreams and memories. Pastor Whitmore pulled Jed aside. "There's something you should know about the federal adoption program." "What about it?" "It's corrupt. Children sold to families who can pay, government officials taking bribes." Whitmore's voice dropped to a whisper. "I've been documenting the crimes for months." "Why?" "Because Luna deserves to know the truth. They all do." Whitmore handed Jed a leather folder, pages of testimony, financial records, proof of systematic child trafficking disguised as humanitarian work. The agent Ayanna killed was central to the operation. He tried to stop her investigation. She was investigating them for 2 years, gathering evidence, building a case. The wanted poster had been a lie, federal agents covering their crimes with manufactured charges. Will this clear her name? It should. Marshal Davis seems like an honest man. Dawn light filtered through lace curtains. Gianna stirred in the narrow bed, her eyes opened slowly. "Luna." "I'm here, Mama." The child pressed close to her mother's side, safe in arms that remembered her scent. "Are you really my mama?" "I am. I've been looking for you every day since they took you. I dreamed about you, about the horses and the big sky." "Those weren't dreams, little star. Those were memories." Jed watched from the doorway. Two souls reunited after years of separation. Love stronger than law or circumstance. Mrs. Whitmore appeared beside him. "We always knew she didn't belong with us." "Not really." The older woman's voice carried sadness and relief. "She needs her real mother. That was generous of you, taking care of her. We grew to love her, but love sometimes means letting go." 3 days later, Marshal Davis delivered the news. Federal prosecutors were dropping all charges against Ayanna. The evidence Pastor Whitmore provided had exposed the adoption scandal. "You're free to go," Davis said. Ayanna stood in Jed's kitchen, Luna at her side, their few possessions packed in worn saddlebags. "Where will you go?" Jed asked. "I don't know, somewhere safe." The words cut deeper than any blade. After everything they'd shared, she was still planning to leave. "What about here? Here. This could be safe if you wanted it to be." Jed's heart hammered against his ribs. 8 years of isolation ending with a question he'd never thought to ask. Luna needs stability, a home. She'd have both. "If you stayed." Gianna looked around the kitchen. Clara's presence lived in every corner. Photographs on the mantel, dishes in the cupboard. "Your wife's memory, Clara would want me to live again, to love again." He crossed the room, stood close enough to touch. "Stay with me, both of you." Gianna's eyes searched his face, looking for doubt, finding only hope. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." Luna tugged at her mother's sleeve. "Can we stay, Mama? I like it here. It feels like home." Home. The word carried weight and promise. Iyanna nodded, tears tracking down her cheeks. "We'll stay." 6 months later, Jed taught Luna to ride while Iyanna watched from the porch. The girls' laughter echoed across the pasture where new cattle grazed. Miguel's son had testified against Grantham. The land commissioner faced federal prison. Justice served cold but certain. The ranch prospered under Ayana's guidance. She knew the land in ways Jed never had, which grass grew best in dry years, where to find water when the wells ran low. Luna bloomed in the high country air. She spoke Comanche with her mother and English with Jed, two worlds bridged by a child's resilience. That evening, Jed sat on the porch swing, Ayana beside him, her hand resting under his. Luna played in the yard with a wooden horse he'd carved. "Do you miss it?" Ayana asked. "Being alone?" "Never." The wind carried scents of sage and summer grass. Stars appeared overhead. The same stars that had witnessed his grief now blessed his healing. Clara's memory lived on in the land she'd loved. But life belonged to the living. Jed squeezed Ayana's fingers, felt her pulse steady and strong. For the first time in 8 years, the future stretched ahead bright with possibility. And that is all to the story for now. Please let me know where you are tuning in from. Perhaps we will create a story there. Consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. And if you enjoy our content, click this video on your screen. I promise you it's worth watching. See you tomorrow.